It's really hard to gauge the actual winners and losers from 5 non-padded practices open to the media the past couple of weeks, but the themes of the 2024 Eagles are beginning to get at least a little bit more clear. For instance, the secondary, of course, is looking absolutely fantastic. The offense, they are loaded with talent, but they need time to learn. My big question, though, after all of these open practices, what exactly does Nick Sirianni do? I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Just a few hours after the Eagles' final minicamp practice concluded, a large list of birds, including Jalen, Smitty, AJ, Slay, Goddard, BG, Mailata, and yes, even owner Jeffrey Lurie attended Game 1 of the NBA Finals in Boston. And while the boys in green held on in front of our Eagles, who I think were wearing green, Eagle fans wearing green in Brazil might want to rethink wearing their team's colors after Packers running back Josh Jacobs dropped kind of an interesting bomb about the Eagles' season opener in Sao Paulo, Brazil on Chris Long's podcast.
I gotta ask you, you're gonna open the season against my Eagles down in Brazil, man. What are you most excited about?
You know, they said that the part of Brazil we going to, you can't even wear green at.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
They said, like, I guess something to do with the gangs and stuff.
Oh, dude,
Eagles,
I'm not going. I'm not going.
Eagles fans.
They said we're not going to Rio. We going to. They told us they was like, man, it's one of them places where they probably won't even let us leave.
A full team.
Oh, damn, I'm not going, dude. No.
Eagles and
I was
Green
picturing-
Bay.
Oh, green. That's
Wait,
what I said.
what color?
green?
Yeah, what color green?
And they probably gonna have like armored vehicles following us. I said, bro, why are we out here?
Now, the Eagles Brazil Twitter account quote tweeted that video and explained that the real reason for not wearing green is due to a local soccer rivalry featuring teams that usually play in the stadium where this game is going to be held, not actually related to gang drama. And while other reporters did confirm that apparently the NFL did tell both the Packers and I assume the Philadelphia Eagles exactly what Josh Jacobs just told Chris Long, I still think the NFL needs to come out and just assure everybody that it's all good and wearing green down in Brazil is not going to be a problem. Still, though, just a little bit of research shows that in 2016 during the Rio Olympic soccer tournament, Nigeria wore green at the Corinthians Arena, which I guess Josh Jacobs figured out and posted on his Instagram when he said, "I was misinformed. Sorry, Brazil. See you soon." See, it's all just blown out of proportion. Now, speaking of things being blown out of proportion, how about minicamp practices? Like, yeah, it was fun. It was a great past couple of weeks, but we all know that in terms of who looks good and who looks bad is really hard to gauge when the pads aren't actually on and you're not playing a different opponent. But as mentioned at the top, there are certain themes, certain players who definitely stood out. Like, for instance, John Ross. How about a pleasant surprise at every single OTA and minicamp practice? He looked quick, he was sharp at the podium, and he seems to have a really great mindset going forward and really has an opportunity to win the wide receiver 3 battle. Now, his biggest problem is going to be Paris Campbell and I think Anais Smith, who just started working back from his pre-draft injury yesterday. Still, John Ross went from retiring to probably making the Eagles roster in the span of a couple months. Likewise, Kelee Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, they clearly had incredible camps based on everything that we've heard. I do think we need to see the Eagles secondary in pads. Again, you can say that for everybody in this video today, but still, Ringo, Rodgers, this young secondary looks to be leagues better than what it was again this past year. I think the linebacker group still feels a little bit thin, but I would give a positive note to the emergence of Devin White being LB1, Zach Bond, and even rookie Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who apparently, according to his coach Bobby King, is way ahead of where he should be as a rookie.
He's been really, really good. You know, he came in as the rookie minicamp, and obviously the system brand new to him, and came in and did a nice job. And he's, like I said before, he's one of those players that doesn't make the same mistake twice, and he's just all ears right now, learning every day.
I'm not convinced that we don't have another Christian Ellis or Nicholas Morrow type situation just yet, again, because the pads aren't on. Still, though, this looks like a much improved linebacker group than what we saw in 2023. Pair that with the offensive stars looking like offensive stars. I mean, AJ looked great. Smitty showed up during mandatory minicamp. Goddard, Saquon looks really fun. And number 26, Eagles green. No issues really there. I think both the offense and defense have a lot of positives and really showed that the past couple of weeks. Offensive line and defensive line, they're a little bit harder to gauge without pads. I kind of need to see Mekhi Becton versus Josh Sweat or Jalen Carter versus Cam Jurgens to really kind of get a gauge on how the overall groups are looking. But the high praise for Tyler Steen and Becton from legends like Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata is honestly good enough for me until we get to camp. And I keep talking about pads, but seriously, put everybody in pads, let them tackle in an actual preseason game, and all of these fringe roster spot players, well, their cream is going to eventually rise to the top. Don't just take my word for that. Take Cooper DeJean's word just yesterday.
I mean, you could say tackling, yeah. But I haven't played football in a while, with full pads, full contact, so I'm excited to get back to that here, I don't think we'll be full contact in camp, but once that first preseason game hits, I'll be ready to roll and get back out there and hit people.
Speaking of DeJean, I think both he and Mitchell showed that they can actually, I think, definitely contribute in year one. DeJean probably has a slightly better shot to earn actual, maybe more reps due to his versatility and, of course, the blockade of stud corners ahead of Quinyon. But the big question with first and second round rookies are, do they look the part? Do they look like they can contribute, day one, year one? And right now, at least so far without pads, Quinyon and Cooper DeJean look pretty darn good. Now, when it comes to losers from mandatory minicamp, it's hard to go ahead and pick the list, but there are some guys that you at least have to mention. James Bradberry, how about a pretty easy target on this list, right? You played poorly last year, the Eagles add a bunch of people to replace you, and then suddenly you're switching to safety before instantly injuring yourself during rep one of warm-up drills. If anything, it just pushes the fan base that was already leaving you with an uphill battle heading into this offseason with an even harder task. Like, is he going to be on the roster? I really don't know, but overall, I wouldn't call it the best week for JB. And I'm hesitant to rip on Nakobe Dean because he's still recovering from his Liz Frank injury, but Zach Bond getting a lot of run and a lot of vocal praise at linebacker, I think should at least have Nakobe Dean a little bit worried about his starting spot come training camp. And sure, maybe Jalix Hunt didn't get a lot of love the past couple of days. Maybe Eli Ricks is definitely in trouble because the cornerback room is so very strong. Maybe even Kenny Gainwell with the emergence of Will Shipley is another loser from the past couple of days. But to me, the biggest loser the past couple of weeks, I think, is Nick Sirianni. Not because of anything he said or anything they did, because again, it's hard for me to judge because I'm not in every single meeting. I'm not in and around Nick Sirianni each and every day. But hearing from all other players about the new additions and Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio has me kind of wondering the overall feeling around Nick Sirianni. For example, listen to Jalen Hurts just yesterday talk about his brand new offensive coordinator and the brand new offense that Kellen Moore is bringing.
Just learning as much as I can from coach, and Kellen is kind of a mild-mannered person where he's laid back, kind of bigger picture, has his hands on pretty much everything, and Coach Doug is all about just putting me in the best position to succeed and preparing me to play at a high level. And so just the conversations of learning, they've been around it for a good minute now, and got great experience in it, and calling plays and coaching quarterbacks, and I'm just there. I'm just there listening and taking in that knowledge.
Jalen and a bunch of their guys keep raving about Kellen Moore's knowledge, his offensive ability, and the fact the entire offense is at least 95% different from what it was last year. Remember, Nick Sirianni was supposed to be an offensive-minded head coach, and we can blame Brian Johnson a bunch, but clearly Nick Sirianni had his hand in the cookie jar of the Eagles' offense in 2023. Likewise, Vic Fangio, he's an experienced defensive mind. He's a no-nonsense guy. And players have already talked about how all the BS from last year has been cut out, and he's even talking a little trash to our QB1.
Yeah, he talk a little trash sometimes, and I enjoy that, but I always remind him, against him. So, no, he's been great. He's got him wired up. He has a great mentality on defense. Kind of old-fashioned, and we're just trying to get the hay in the barn, and prepare for what's to come, and just make sure we're peaking at the right time.
And as great as having new coordinators is and definitely will make the Eagles better in 2024, I continue to sit back the past couple of weeks and go, so what exactly does Nick Sirianni do now? Well, Nick was asked that question yesterday, and he didn't really help his case. He gave kind of a really long, confusing, and rambling answer. What do you make of this?
How we lead the culture, because we know that the guys are looking to us. And you still have the same common bonds, and that's how you do that. To be fair to your question, that's a great question, because when I'm not in there every single second of every single day, that means I'm around everybody else. My relationship with Clint Hurt is highly important. My relationship with Howie is highly important. Jalen and the quarterbacks and the offense at every single time of every single day.
Okay, I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. In Sirianni's defense, he's not paid to be a great orator at the podium. And remember back to whenever he was hired and people ripped him for the opening press conference, and then he went to a Super Bowl. So he's not awful, but right now it feels like he's a cheerleader, a motivator, just the guy making sure everybody's in the right place. I'm just starting to get lame duck vibes from the Eagles head coach. And remember, I was one of many of you guys who was calling for Nick Sirianni's job last year because it felt like the wheels fell off the cart, and the person leading the cart was, of course, Nick Sirianni. But I don't want Nick Sirianni to lose his job. I don't want him to fail. Philadelphia and all of the fans should be begging this guy to have a successful season, keep his job, and be the Eagles head coach for a very long time, because that means the Eagles are winning, and we should all be in agreement that that's a good thing. And he was at the helm when the Eagles went to a Super Bowl and almost won it just a couple of seasons ago. When you hear clips like this of Jalen Hurts trying to explain what's different about Sirianni from this year to last year, you kind of watch and go, that doesn't sound very good.
Take two more questions. What have you noticed about, Nick being open-minded to change up the offense like he has? I mean, what does that say about him?
I mean, it's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it.
What have you seen? What have you seen from him as far as doing that?
I think he's just, he's been great and, the messages he's delivering to the team. He's trying to be very intentional in what he's saying. And yeah.
Now, is Nick Sirianni a lame duck head coach? I don't think Howie Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie would do something like that. They truly and clearly believe in this guy for whatever reason, whether it's actually warranted or not. But he definitely feels like he's on a very thin leash right now. And you almost get from some of the press conferences that Sirianni understands that as well. And he's trying to make sure that other people around him raise the level of the team in order to all contribute to their success. But in the end, the football team's performance will ultimately fall on him as a head coach, not Vic Fangio or Kellen Moore, maybe a little bit towards Jalen Hurts. But whether fair or unfair, I personally am rooting for Sirianni to have a very successful season. I just hope that training camp shows us that Sirianni is the kind of jack-of-all-trades leader they're trying to build him out to be, and not just someone clapping on the sideline, really hoping that Kellen Moore has figured out the Eagles' offense. There'll be plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks as the Eagles' offseason, I guess, really kicks underway because they are off for a 6-week season before the start of training camp. Brandon Lee Gouton joins the show over the weekend to discuss what he saw from the final minicamp practices, as well as everything else he took away from actually being there. Be sure to be sub for that. And we got some more exciting giveaways happening soon. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show.